right, welcome back to One True Podcast. Zach Smith with me as always. Good morning, Zach.
Good morning, Brice. I'm still kind of, trying to come down from the Rocky Mountain high and try to get over what happened in that last game. But we're slowly but surely we're kind of recovering still.
You actually heard me sing Rocky Mountain High in the Rocky Mountains.
It was beautiful. I wish we could have put
was
that
that
on
the highlight of your trip?
It was the bet. Well, that and I don't know if we want to make your disc golf shot public, but that was a pretty.
Why not? Yes, I did have the disc golf shot of my life on a course that we played out there. It was pretty exciting. I had about 100-foot throw in, so that was nice. With us today is Sean Walker, who's been at KSL about a decade now, been covering BYU even longer than that. Sean, appreciate you hopping on and dropping some knowledge with us.
Guys, I appreciate you having me here, and I didn't realize this was going to be a disc golf podcast. I would have brought my discs as well. I actually just barely had a really nice fairway shot of my own. It wasn't a 100-yarder like you, but I got really excited when I finally hit one of those, it was about a 68-yard kind of mid chip in, if you will, a little too long for a chip, a little too short for a fairway. So I got really excited on that the other day. So
yeah, nice. Yeah, cool. Yeah, we could do a whole podcast here.
I don't know if you're coming to Waco, but hey, there's a couple good disc golf courses.
There are some good courses.
Anything that's PDGA approved, and I am there. We'll talk a little bit off pod, maybe.
Right. Well, first, let's talk some ball. So Saturday at McLane Stadium, we've got the holy war between Baylor and BYU. Two teams on very opposite ends of the emotional barometer right now. Both the 4-0 Cougars and the 2-2 Bears are coming off equally surprising outcomes, I would say, for maybe different ways. BYU absolutely hammered Kansas State. I think that was one of the eye-opening scores of last week, in a performance that vaulted the Cougars into the top 25. Meanwhile, Baylor had a 24-10 lead in Colorado at Boulder and blew it, losing 38-31 in overtime. Two of the craziest plays to end that game, ending regulation, and then the last play of overtime that you'll ever see. So, how much more craziness should we expect on Saturday in Waco, and who wins the game? Sean?
That's a great question. Well, let's dive right into some predictions and whatnot off of that, because I think you're absolutely right. These do feel like two teams that are in very different headspaces, if you will, at the moment. Which is ironic because they're also two teams that I think were picked relatively similarly if we're talking about like preseason projections from Big 12 Media Day and that kind of thing, where they were kind of right around that lower third of the conference. BYU was picked to finish number 13th in the league, and then Baylor was right there pretty close just behind them, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm trying to do all of this off the top of my head. So they had sort of similar preseason projections and similar past feels, if you will, to them, and yet their present definitely doesn't quite feel in that same way. It's BYU's first 4-0 start in a couple of years, first time in the top 25 since 2022, and things are feeling pretty good in Provo right now. With a defense under second-year defensive coordinator Jay Hill that just seems to be clicking and making all of the right moves. An offense that has struggled at times in the first 3 games of the year, but it found its way a little bit, obviously aided by some short fields and that kind of thing defensively, right? But it's an offense that relies a lot on simply not messing up, not committing a lot of turnovers. I think quarterback Jake Retzlaff did that very well Saturday night against the Wildcats, and the defense and the special teams. We can't totally negate special teams. There's a wild punt return touchdown in there that we may get to here in a little bit. But those kind of carried the way with an offense that sort of didn't get in their way, if you will. And so if BYU can do that again, replicate that performance, I think they could have probably even a similar outcome to what they did against Kansas State. I hope I'm not speaking too much out of turn there. But that's also the issue is replicating that performance. BYU was at home on Saturday night, one of the more feared home field advantages, in my opinion, in the conference. I've been to most of the stadiums now in the Big 12 since BYU joined last year. Actually, making a return trip to Waco this Saturday. I was there a couple years ago when it
Hmm.
wasn't officially a conference game yet, but remember, it was right after BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, UCF had joined the league. And so it was kind of BYU's unofficial welcome to the Big 12 moment,
Hmm.
even though they weren't yet conference members. Beautiful stadium out there in McLane, right on the banks of the Brazos River,
Hmm.
which the locals apparently don't think the Brazos is as beautiful as a non-local like me thinks
Well,
it is.
it's a little it's not that clear, and it's got some gators in it now. There's actually been gator sightings in the Brazos, so
I might
yeah.
have to go some gator hunting either maybe after the game because it's an 11 a.m. kickoff, but that's really exciting right there.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, so in BYU's second trip to Waco, I guess, since unofficially joining the Big 12, if you will, if they could do what anything reminiscent of what they did at home, then I think they win this game. But the question is going to be whether or not they can replicate what they did against Kansas State on the road. I feel like so much of that performance was based off of the home crowd. It was based off of being at altitude. It was based off of playing in front of 64,000 plus fans, one of the loudest stadium environments I've been in a long time. I don't think they're going to get that in Waco. So
Mhm.
I'm not expecting a 20-point win like that. I actually think this game's probably going to wind up being relatively close, or at least closer than a lot of people think. I think it's a 3.5 point line right now in most Vegas sports
Hmm.
books. And I think this could easily be a 7 to 10 point game one way or the other. So um, I'd probably like BYU at this point just because of past precedent. But I'm also not super confident about that. Maybe I'd like to hear a little bit about what you guys think before I formally lock that in. But but BYU by a touchdown, if things really do go right, I think feel sort of where my headspace is at if I'm making like a semi-formal prediction.
Gotcha. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more crazy can you get, than last week for both of these teams. I mean, that was pretty crazy. But when I saw that Baylor was favored in this game, like that was pretty shocking to me. But I think that last play from Colorado just cast such a uh, shadow over Baylor. When if you look at outside of that last play, Baylor has played some of its best football over the last two games. I mean, putting up 31 points in back-to-back games, I can't really that's progress for the Baylor offense. And I think that last play really just casts such a, like I said, a shadow that it's hard to look past it. That Baylor has been playing well and Baylor has looked much improved. So, you know, but I'm still gonna pick the BYU to win, just because Baylor has yet to really prove that when a game gets tight, that they can finish, that they can close, that they can actually put four quarters together and close out a game. And until they do that, I'm still gonna have my doubts about Baylor and dave-aranda and Jake Spavital and the whole deal. So, I think it's gonna be pretty close. I agree, but I'm still picking the Cougars in this one.
So Zach and I did talk about this last week while we were in Colorado, and he was like, "I'm not picking Baylor again until, I guess what until maybe they prove you wrong, Zach." But
Houston, something like yeah, end of the year. Yeah, yeah. They got
but
they got to show me something, yeah.
meanwhile, I even called it on Saturday after the game that I was going to pick them against BYU, and I do feel like it was two fluky plays two great plays that they lost on, but unbelievable plays that obviously you can criticize dave-aranda for the defense on the Hail Mary. They should have brought more guys back to knock the ball down. That said, it took just a perfect throw, perfect catch. Then it took like incredible timing on Travis Hunter's part to knock the ball loose in overtime. I do think Baylor's playing pretty well, and
Hmm.
good Lord, they should be in desperation mode at this point. I mean, if they really do want to try to get to a bowl game at minimum this year, I think they need to win this BYU game. So, We'll see. I do feel like there's fans turning against Dave, and so we'll see what the vibe is like on Saturday. I don't think it'll be quite as good as it was against Air Force. That was a good crowd, but
Hmm.
we'll see. So Sean referenced it, but in that K-State game, BYU's Parker Kingston made one of the most unbelievable punt returns that you'll ever see. Chased down a ball that went over his head. I think he fielded it about the 10, maybe took it inside the 5. He's like curling back across the field. There's like K-State guys running into each other. And ultimately goes for a 90-yard touchdown on a play where he probably ran 160 yards or something. I don't know. But so then he literally spilled his guts on the sideline, which I thought was kind of funny. Meanwhile, I told Zach that the top 5 plays of that Baylor Colorado game might be 5 of the best Big 12 plays all season. Um, so Sean, where does Kingston's punt return rank among the best plays you've seen live? And then we'll get to Zach and ask what play impressed you most from that Baylor Colorado game.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Parker Kingston's punt return probably ranks roughly between two Travis Hunter plays against Baylor. I mean, that kid was just all over the place. And if he's not the Heisman front runner right now, then I really think we need to reevaluate what the Heisman Trophy is because there's nobody in college football doing anything even remotely like what that guy is doing. And the fact that Baylor was in overtime, even a Hail Mary away from beating Colorado with that type of player, I think speaks to what this Baylor team can be when things really are clicking right in a lot of ways. Like that's
Hmm.
it's absolutely phenomenal what Travis is able to do there. And I'd put it right up there with some of the craziness, including Parker Kingston's punt return in a lot of ways. This is something, guys, that doesn't happen very often at BYU. Like they have solid special teams. Their best teams have really solid special teams, but they're not always spectacular like this. In fact, this is the first punt return for a touchdown at BYU since 2013. JD Falslev went 71 yards during a 27-point win over Middle Tennessee back then. So it's been a good decade since they've returned a punt for a touchdown. If you want to go a little bit further, this between the defensive touchdown, the scoop and score fumble recovery by freshman Tommy Prasas, and then Kingston's touchdown. It's the first time BYU has scored a touchdown in all 3 phases of the game. So the defensive and the special teams score since 1996
Wow.
against Utah State. It's been that long since they've had both. So special teams, like big special teams plays happen, but they don't always go to the house in the way that Parker Kingston's punt return did. And so I put this right up there with one of the crazier plays that I've seen in certainly in my time covering the beat, for obvious reasons, right there. I haven't covered very many punt return touchdowns, as I just mentioned. And the way this play developed, like so much about this play shouldn't have happened from the beginning where where it started. BYU was in punt safe coverage at the time. So that means most of their defense was on the field. It was a 4th and short. So they were trying to guard against Kansas State, potentially going for a fake punt at this point in the game. But they get the punt off. So K-State gets the punt off. And most of BYU's defense is still on the field. So obviously you got Parker Kingston. He's a wide receiver. And one of their lead punt returners. He fields the ball. But the guys, if you look at who's blocking for him, you'll see defensive end Tyler Batty take a shot at a defender or at a blocker. You'll see linebacker Isaiah Glasker, who kind of guides Kingston into the end zone. Um, You'll see another linebacker, Jack Kelly, kind of come off of the initial rush to come back and make a crucial block on the return. One of my favorite moments is cornerback. He plays a little bit of nickel, but mostly cornerback. Jacob Robinson, actually one of the last blocks that is made. Uh, Jacob Robinson comes full like Braun Breaker style from WWE with just a spear in a block to kind of propel Kingston into the end zone. So these are all guys that are like, yes, everybody or most players at BYU have played special teams, and these guys certainly have played special teams, but they're not primarily special teams players. They're the punt safe guys. They're primarily defenders. It's this top line of defense kind of ushering Parker into the end zone. And then you touched on it right there, Brice. Um, this was initially a muffed punt.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Kingston goes for it, and I don't know if he actually touches the ball or whatever. It looks like he's maybe thinking about fair catching it around the 15 or so.
Mhm.
Um, and the ball goes over his head. It may or may not have taken a touch, so it's a live ball, but it just bounces right into his arms, and he kind of starts running, but he's evading tacklers, so he's running backwards. Like he did, and I don't want to throw too much shade on Parker because it obviously worked out, right? But he did almost everything that you're taught not to do on a punt return.
Right.
And yet it still winds up. So it officially goes down as a 90-yard punt return, I think was the official margin. He probably ran about 150 or 160 yards. That's why you caught on the sideline him giving up a beefy 5-layer burrito, as they like to say during the broadcast.
Live Moss,
Um,
baby.
yeah, yeah, just live Moss indeed. So yeah, so for that reason, it's one of the more impressive, one of the more wild plays I've seen in BYU history, and it
Hmm.
might be the best special teams play that certainly that I've witnessed in my time on the beat. So in the
Yeah.
last 10 or
Yeah.
even 15 years here with this program. There have been some other ones historically. Um, uh, there was one moment during the 1996 season where a special teams player actually like jumped over the line to, I think, block a punt or something like that. So there were some other crazy moments. Um, but in this like relatively modern era, late Mountain West slash Independent slash Big 12 era, I think Parker Kingston's run is right up there with the best of them.
Yeah. Have y'all seen the John Boy media breakdown of that play? Okay.
Mm-mm.
You need to check that out, Zach. It's
Pretty
it's
good. It's
it's
pretty
pretty
good.
friggin' funny. Uh
Parker actually did a breakdown of it in this film room segment with BYU TV, one of the local TV stations here.
Hmm.
And he said it was about the 20 or the 30-yard line as he kind of knew he was getting into the end zone. He had green grass in front of him. And he said that's about the moments where I stopped being able to feel my legs, so I didn't know if I could actually carry myself into the end zone at that point as well.
wow. Well, there were about 3 to 4 instances of K-State guys just running into each other, taking themselves out. That was pretty incredible too. But great play. Zach, we obviously saw a litany of them in Boulder. What's the best one?
Man, I've been stewing about this since you sent this because there are just so many. I'm gonna try to keep it Baylor focused because whatever. That Monterey catch when he just laid out was
To me, the
like
Monterey catch was the best play of the game. And
it was incredible. Like how only he can make that play with his freakish speed, and all that. Like it was incredible. Like that to me was
yeah, so you heard
insane.
me rank the plays after the game, and I put Monterey's catch number one. Uh, it was a play where I was like, okay, you cannot overthrow Monterey. I
No,
mean,
absolutely
the
not.
dude is that fast because it looked like, ooh, he's not gonna get to that, and he just lays out. I mean, that was an incredible catch.
But one that I think maybe isn't like eye-popping in the moment, but like Sawyer Robertson's pass to Hal Presley in the fourth quarter. Like
The
Robertson
dime.
put that in a spot where only Presley could get it. And we actually talked to Presley yesterday, and I was going to ask him about his connection with Sawyer and how that's developing. And I was like, yeah, in the fourth quarter there, Sawyer threw a pretty good pass to you. And he just turns to me, looks at me, gives me a look, and he's like, pretty good, pretty good. Like no, that was awesome. And kind of in that moment when Baylor's offense needed a spark, kind of that they kind of found it. So I think that wasn't like as eye popping as the Monterey catch, but I think it was just as impressive.
I had as the number two play, um, the Travis Hunter fumble,
Mhm.
forced fumble. I mean, I just thought the timing on it was, um, I mean, you can't time that any better. He got a hat on the ball, wins the game for Colorado. So, uh, which is a good good segue for us. Let's talk about Travis Hunter a little bit. Uh, so I haven't seen a guy that good in a while. I mean, I've seen some pretty good college football players. Um, Manziel was good. Robert Griffin was good. Um, but this guy is pretty special. So Sean mentioned it earlier, but can he win the Heisman? Let's say if Colorado goes 7-5. What do y'all say?
I mean, I absolutely, he absolutely should. Like he's, the Heisman is for the best player. It's not for the best team. Like a lot of times that they correlate, but you know, um, what Shohei Ohtani is doing, like that's who I compare it to, right?
Mm,
Because what Shohei Ohtani is doing is incredible, and he's going to win the MVP whether he's playing for the Dodgers or the Stinky Angels. Mike
hmm
Trout played for the Stinky Angels and won the MVP a bunch of times in baseball, but you know, yeah, what he's doing is just incredible. And to see it live and to see like how many snaps he's taking and kind of the impact he's making, like he's making elite plays on both sides of the ball. No one else can say that. And it shouldn't really be that much of an argument. Like I don't, if Colorado goes winless, maybe, but like they're not. And Travis Hunter is literally winning games for them. And his wins above replacement is out of this world. So like yeah, he absolutely should be a Heisman favorite. And I don't care if the Buffaloes are under 500, like he's still incredible.
I think should be and will he though are two
hmm
slightly different conversations with regards to Travis Hunter and the Heisman Trophy. Because should he be in the conversation for the Heisman Trophy? Yeah, like he absolutely should be the front runner. There's nobody, yeah, I mean Zach mentioned it. There's nobody in college football doing what he is doing on both sides of the field. The fact that he's putting up the numbers that he is right now as a receiver, and yet his best position is as a defensive back. There hasn't been a DB to win the Heisman Trophy, I think, since Charles Woodson. I think he's the only one so far. I'm not a Heisman historian, so you guys can totally correct me if I'm
I
off there.
believe
But
that's right.
yeah, but the fact that he's primarily his best position is a DB and he's still doing what he's doing as a receiver, I think just speaks to what he means to Colorado and just to the sport in general. Um, but I think we could be headed towards a moment that includes another indictment on what the Heisman Trust and what the Heisman Trophy voting committee has become. The Heisman Trophy is not supposed to be the best quarterback in college football, but it kind of has been. It's been a quarterback showcase for the most part over the last 15, maybe even 20 years coming up on. It's not supposed to be the best player on the best team, but as often as not, probably more often than not, it's been the best player on the best team in college football. And so, like, yes, like I totally agree, Zach. All of this is how it should be. I don't think there's a player in college football doing anything like Travis Hunter. I just don't know if he actually will win the Heisman. I don't know if he will go to New York as a finalist, even though, again, he absolutely should. He probably plays the wrong position, probably plays two wrong positions. And I don't know if the Buffs being a mediocre at the end of the day, or even potentially slightly worse, will help him. It might not hurt him, but it definitely won't help him in that regard. So I I do agree. I think he should be. I just don't know if he actually is at this point. And
I think you make some
I think
great
that's an
point.
indictment on the Heisman.
I think you make some great points. I am a Heisman voter, and we're not allowed to tell who we're voting for. Uh, that said, I think here in September I can say, I mean, I would absolutely have Travis Hunter at the top of my list. I mean, I basically just said that a little while ago. He's the best player I've seen in a long time. And to Sean's point about, playing two wrong positions, yeah, receivers and DBs, they don't typically win. Tim Brown, I think, was the first receiver to ever win, 87. There haven't been a lot of receivers to win. Um, Charles Woodson won because he was a two-way guy. That to me, maybe two wrongs make a right in Travis Hunter's case because uh, the fact that he's making big time, game changing, huge plays on both sides of the ball without hardly coming off the field, you just don't see that anymore. I mean, that's old school two-way football. Um, and it's so he's so good at both positions that you go, what's he going to play in the NFL? Is he a receiver? Is he a DB? Is he going to be Dion and play both? I think he might. I think they could line him up. Maybe not to the point they do in the college football where they play as many snaps. But who was telling me?
Might
Somebody,
play baseball too, for that matter.
yeah, somebody was telling me. Well, they do have more built-in rest in the NFL games.
Hmm.
Just so you know, I think he's got a really great shot. There have been instances where the Heisman has, it's been a minute, but there have been instances where the Heisman has gone to a player on a team that, wasn't 10 wins or more. Robert Griffin being one of them. So, yeah, I think he's got a good chance. I even considered putting him in my top three last year. And I think the fact that Colorado was 4-8 didn't help his
Hmm.
case. But 7-5 or better, I think, yeah, he's got to be a lock, really. I mean, we'll see. But I do think, Sean, you make a great point. I would pull out like Zach made the Shohei analogy. I'm a big NBA fan. I would say like one of the reasons Luka didn't win the MVP over like Nikola Jokic or SGA for the Thunder is because those other two teams' records were a little bit better, and Luka, um, you could argue had the better stats,
Hmm.
but I would have had him third on my MVP list as an NBA fan. So yeah, it does become a lot of times, yeah, how good is the team too? Let's look at that. So and I'm not even saying that's necessarily wrong. I think every Heisman voter should vote their conscience. But yeah, anyway. So
That's almost, I mean, that's almost part of the issue, right? Right, Bryce, is there are like
there
980
are a lot of
Heisman
voters.
voters,
A
and
lot of
so
voters.
yeah, and so it just does feel like there can be at times a lot of
Yeah.
conscience,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of pulling different ways, I guess.
Well, and I do think there probably needs to be how would you even call it? A Heisman clearinghouse or something where they go and they check, is this guy really covering college football anymore? Or should he still have a Heisman vote? I think there's a few votes out there like that. I think you do want people voting that are covering the game on a regular basis. So
Hmm.
that kind of thing probably needs to happen a little more often. But anyway, so Sean, you are coming to Waco on this weekend?
Yeah, I will be there this weekend. It's gonna be a really long day for me because I'm flying in and out of Dallas, and so I'm probably gonna be up around 6 a.m. to try to get to beautiful McLane Stadium on the banks of the Brazos. But
Yeah.
yeah, I will be there this weekend, and it's funny. We've actually got two local teams that are going to be in that area because that night, just about an hour and a half away, Real Salt Lake's going to be playing at Austin FC as well. So it'll be a fun little
Oh, don't get Zach
Utah
started on
Central
Austin
Oh,
FC.
Texas,
oh, we
yeah,
I-
can, yeah, let's go
crossover.
down that rabbit hole.
well, I'll give you a couple food recommendations because we love to do that for our media.
Oh, this is what I was hoping to get out of you guys.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
absolutely. Schmaltz's sandwiches, I always give that one. It's a good local
Okay.
Waco place. It's kind of like a Schlotzky's but better. Um, I would say burgers. You got Double R is a good greasy hole in the wall. Um, That's a great place. Barbecue. Guest Barbecue is really good. Hellberg Barbecue is really good. Uh,
Terry Blacks is new to
Terry
town, so
Black's is
they're
new to
mm,
town, but doing bang up business. You'll spend some money at Terry Black's,
yeah.
but uh, VTEX is known for something called the Gut Pack, which is you should be experienced at least once.
Mhm.
And then I'll also mention just one of my favorite local places, which is an Italian place called Barris, and on Valley Mills Drive, and good cheap Italian food. So there's a few. You can go back and watch the pod later, take some notes. But Sean, appreciate you hopping on and helping us out this week.
No, thank you guys for having me. Really do appreciate it. And I'm definitely gonna have to check out at least some of those places. I'm a big Schlotzsky's guy.
Okay,
We just barely lost our last Schlotzsky's Deli in Utah a couple years ago. And so I may have to grab a sandwich on my way into town, and then maybe I'll hit some barbecue on the way out.
nice, good play, good play. Cool. See y'all later.
So, yeah.